They buried you in whispers. Now they mourn in silence, because what they thought was your end just became their turning point into regret. And oh, they are mourning now, not at your funeral, but at the sight of your glow, crying not because you're gone, but because you're alive in a way they never imagined. You warned them, you felt it, you sensed something massive was coming, but they laughed, they mocked, they played games while you were building the storm that would someday turn every fake laugh into a silent breakdown. And now, that day has arrived. Something massive just happened, and it wasn't in your world, it was in theirs. A shift, a shattering, a realization so sharp it cut through every lie they wrapped themselves in. They are crying, not on Instagram, not in front of people, but in the dark corners they can't escape, behind locked doors. On the other side of the story they tried to write without you. But before we go deeper into this reckoning, chosen one, press that like button and subscribe. You already know, when this message reaches you, it's alignment. When you engage, it signals to the platform that this truth needs to echo louder, farther, deeper into the souls of others like you. Help this light travel, help this pain turn to power for more than just you. Because what we're about to dive into isn't just truth, it's evidence. Chosen one, they did everything to erase you. They didn't just leave, they laughed when they left. They mocked your silence, they twisted your words into weapons and handed them out in group chats. They copied your essence and claimed it as their own. They told others you were crazy, too sensitive, too much, all while draining your energy like thieves in the night. They saw your kindness as weakness, your vulnerability as ammunition. And when they finally cut you off, they didn't walk away with grace. No, they walked away with pride, head held high, thinking they had won. But now, that pride is choking them, because something massive just happened, and it had nothing to do with what you said, and everything to do with what you became. You became untouchable, you became elevated, you became everything they said you couldn't be, and then some, and what they once dismissed now follows them around like a shadow. Your name lives in rooms you've never walked into. Your energy echoes in spaces they thought they'd own. They're scrolling in silence, watching everything unfold. And the worst part? They remember. They remember what they said, what they did, what they denied. And that memory, it's eating them alive. They cry now not because they miss you, but because they mishandled you. They didn't just fumble a connection. They fumbled their own peace, their own elevation, their own access. You weren't just someone passing through. You were the access point to everything they claimed to want, and now they watch it grow without them. They cry behind closed doors because pride won't let them say, "I was wrong." Because ego won't let them admit, "I lost something sacred." Because now they realize you didn't just glow up, you grew beyond recognition, beyond reach. They used to pray for peace, and now they remember you were it. They used to crave loyalty, and now they realize it lived in your presence. They wanted success, growth, alignment, but they burned the very bridge that led to it. And the universe? Oh, the universe has a way of turning the volume up when it's time, a way of making sure they hear the silence they created. Every blessing in your life now, every new opportunity, every beam of light you walk in, it screams the truth they tried to bury. You were never the problem. You were the passage. And now their regret isn't poetic. It's personal, not the kind they write about, but the kind that wakes them up at night, the kind that makes them scroll through your profile without reacting, the kind that rewatches old messages, hoping for a crack in your armor. the kind that keeps them quiet, because speaking would mean admitting you were always right. They called your glow arrogance. Now they call it unreachable. They said you'd never be anything without them. Now they're nothing like they were with you. They thought they were cutting dead weight. Now they're suffocating in their own stagnation. This isn't karma, it's consequence. This isn't revenge, it's revelation. This isn't look at me now. This is now you see me for who I was the whole time. So let them cry, let the tears water the seeds of truth you planted when they thought you were just noise. Let them sit in the silence they swore they wanted. Because, chosen one, something massive just happened, not just in your life, but in theirs. And now they know you weren't loud because you were desperate. You were silent because you were being positioned. And now you're the headline they can't escape. The name they can't unhear, the light they can't dim, and the cry they can't stop. So, chosen one, if you're still breathing steady after that opening truth bomb, then trust me, you're built for what's coming next. That wasn't even the storm, just the thunder before it, because we're about to go deeper into every cry behind every closed door that once slammed in your face. Drop 999 in the comments if you feel this shift in your bones. And if this message is speaking what your silence couldn't, consider fueling this mission. A like, a share, a blessing to this platform. It's not support, it's strategy. Every ripple you create helps awaken another chosen one. Number 1. They thought you were done, but you were just delayed. They didn't pause you, the universe did, not to protect them, but to prepare you. They thought it was over for you. Be honest, they celebrated your downfall, quietly, maybe even loudly behind your back. They whispered things like, "See?" Told you they were nothing. They mistook your stillness for surrender. They misread your pause as permanent. They confused your silence with shame. But what they didn't know was that your delay wasn't death. It was divine design. And now, that delay has become their worst nightmare. Because you didn't stay buried. You rose. They danced in your absence, posted subliminal jabs, shared fake smiles with others like them who couldn't stand your light. And you said nothing. You let them have their moment. But silence doesn't mean surrender. A storm doesn't make noise while it's gathering power. And that's exactly what was happening. You were being built in the dark, layered in silence, and protected by something bigger than their gossip. Now they're crying, not because they lost you, but because your presence has become proof that they never had the authority to call the end of your story. You see, they thought you were paused by failure. But the universe, it pressed pause on you like a general holds back his sharpest weapon until the battle is desperate enough for something game-changing. That's you. You were the final move, the reserved strike, the storm waiting on divine timing. You weren't behind, you were being aligned. They just couldn't see it, because low vision can't recognize high purpose. Let's be real. There were moments when you questioned it too. Moments when you thought, maybe they're right. Maybe I'm not who I thought I was. Maybe I did fall off. And that's what they wanted. They wanted you to doubt yourself so much that you'd walk away from your own calling. But here's the thing about the chosen. You can't quit what you were born to carry. You might pause, you might cry, you might bleed, but you don't break. And when you rise harder than they ever imagined. Look at every giant who ever made impact. Oprah was fired and told she was unfit for TV. Steve Jobs was pushed out of his own company. Michael Jordan didn't make his varsity basketball team. What happened? They didn't crumble. They delayed. And that delay became the perfect storm. You are not late. You are not behind. You are not broken. You were being reserved for a time when your presence would be undeniable. Your enemies are crying because they realize they celebrated too soon. They raised their glass to a funeral that never happened. They forgot the seed doesn't die underground, it roots. And now that you've bloomed, you're swallowing every lie they planted. Some of them even prayed for your downfall. Let's not sugarcoat it. They disguised it as distance, called it cutting you off, acted like you were toxic, when really they were terrified. Because even in your stillness, they felt your power. You didn't have to do anything. You just had to exist. And that made them uncomfortable. But now, it makes them cry. Cry in silence. Cry in private. Cry in shame. Because they remember the things they said. They remember the way they treated you. They remember writing you off. And now they watch you write the chapters they swore would never exist. And chosen one, here's what I need you to know. They didn't delay your glow. The Creator timed it for maximum impact. Your story isn't late. It's arriving exactly when it needs to, for you, and as a consequence for them. This isn't coincidence. This is alignment, strategic, cosmic, powerful. You were being sharpened while they were celebrating your silence. You were being made bulletproof while they thought you were bleeding out. And now you're not just healed, you're dangerous. Not because you fight like they do, but because you move like truth. And truth doesn't beg to be heard. It walks in and commands the atmosphere. Let them cry. Let them sit in the silence they thought would kill you. Let them scroll through your presence and choke on the glow. Because what you are now, you didn't just become that overnight. You became that in the dark, in the stillness, in the doubt. You became what they could never fake. They thought you were done. They thought you were finished. They thought you were another person they could cross off and feel nothing. But they forgot. Chosen ones don't disappear. They resurface, louder, stronger, unshakable. The delay they celebrated became the gap that let you become unstoppable. Now they whisper again, but it's not with confidence, it's with regret. They study your every move, they mimic your presence. They look for your essence in people who don't even know how to carry it. They cry not just because you made it, but because they realize you were always going to. They just didn't believe it until it was too late. The same door they slammed in your face, you now walk past it, on your way to places they'll never be invited. You didn't just come back, you came back unreachable. You didn't just bounce back, you broke the scale. And for anyone watching this, still wondering if their delay means defeat, hear this. You are not falling behind. You are being positioned. You are not being ignored. You are being refined. And when you rise, it won't be for applause. It will be as evidence that no weapon formed ever wins. It only warns the enemy that the chosen one is near. They thought you were done. Now they cry, knowing you were only just getting started. Number 2, your name now echoes in the same rooms they used to mock you in. They erased your name from their circle, but now your success has become the center of every conversation. You were once the punchline in rooms you never entered, the subject of side eyes and sarcastic grins, the ghost they mentioned only to dismiss. They talked about you like you were nothing, a phase, a failure, a forgotten file in their memory. They crossed your name out in group chats, behind locked doors, through passive posts, through subtle digs masked as advice. They laughed when you weren't around, celebrated when your name stopped trending in their tiny world. And now they're choking on that same name because it refuses to disappear. Your name is louder than it's ever been, and you haven't even spoken. That's what burns them. You didn't clap back. You didn't return to throw dirt. You didn't argue your way into respect. You earned it by surviving what they said would destroy you. You walked through their ridicule like a storm with no fear of thunder, and now every room that once mocked you echoes with your name, not in shade, but in awe. Not as a warning, but as a standard. They can't believe it, but they feel it. Their pride won't let them say it out loud, but they're studying you, following in silence, taking notes from the same presence they once tried to erase. The people who rolled their eyes at your name, they now whisper it with caution, like it might come alive and remind them of what they lost. It stings, doesn't it? The realization that you became everything they said you wouldn't, and more, that the name they once treated like a joke now lives rent-free in rooms they thought belonged to them. That you didn't just rise, you redefined the landscape they used to control. You were the one they uninvited, blocked, talked about, and tried to outgrow. But the universe has a way of placing the chosen one in conversations that can't happen without them. You were the name they crossed off the list. Now, you are the list. They tried to ignore your presence, and now it's inescapable. You became the blueprint they have to explain around, the standard they pretend not to see while secretly comparing themselves to it. Let's get real. They didn't just erase you. They enjoyed doing it. They thought they were powerful when they shut you out. They felt big when they joked about your downfall. They loved the sound of your name when it was attached to struggle, pain, or isolation. But now, that same name brings discomfort. Your glow disrupts their comfort zones. Your wins interrupt their small talk. Your name brings silence, not peace, but the kind of silence that screams, "We were wrong." And the best part, you never had to fight your way in. You didn't push for their validation. You weren't even trying to impress them. That's what cuts the deepest. You weren't chasing approval. You were just aligning. You didn't show up to prove a point, but now your existence has become the point. You didn't have to tear anyone down. You just built yourself so high they can't avoid looking up. Your name is now on tongues that swore they'd never speak it again. You're the example in their conversations, the comparison in their insecurities, the reference in their regret. You're the proof they wished didn't exist, because it confirms that they bet against the wrong soul. This is bigger than revenge. This is divine demonstration. This is what happens when the universe lets the real ones shine on their own timeline. Not for fame, not for applause, but to expose the ones who used rejection as entertainment. You were the name they silenced, and now you echo louder than ever. You're not just being talked about, you're being remembered, and not in pity, but in reverence. Because while they were busy throwing dirt on your name, they didn't realize they were planting the seed of your reputation. And now, that seed has bloomed, wildly, beautifully, uncontrollably. And their only choice? Watch. It's funny how life works. The ones who blocked you now follow you from fake accounts. The ones who laughed at your ideas now hear them quoted in the same rooms they sit in. The same people who told others you were doing too much are now wondering why everything they try feels like it's not enough. Because your name has become a frequency, and if you're not on it, you feel the distance. You're not just in rooms now, you are the room. You're the voice in the board meeting, the topic at the dinner table, the case study in success. You're what they use to measure growth, even when they pretend they're not watching. They don't want to admit it, but they're learning from you. They study the timing of your moves, the poise of your silence, the strength of your return. And every time your name comes up, It reminds them of what they tried to erase and failed. And chosen one, don't let their silence fool you. Silence is the heaviest sound when it's carrying guilt. Every pause when your name is mentioned is them remembering how they treated you. Every awkward shift, every change of subject, every fake smile, that's not peace, that's pain, that's unspoken regret. That's them realizing the person they buried was the person the room was waiting for all along. So let them talk, let them mumble, let them sit with the echo of your name, louder than their approval ever was. Because now you don't need them to say anything. Your presence is loud enough. Your results are proof. Your consistency is the mic drop. You were the name they crossed out on the invite. Now you're the name on the banner, the guest of honor, the headliner. They couldn't keep you out of the room because you were the reason the room existed. Let that echo. Number 3, they pushed you out and pushed peace out with you. They didn't just lose you, they lost what only came with you. They thought they were doing themselves a favor when they pushed you out, told themselves they were removing drama, cutting off distractions, protecting their peace. But here's the twist. You were the peace. You were the reason the chaos didn't swallow them sooner. You were the anchor they never thanked, the clarity they never valued, the favor they never recognized, until it walked out the door with you. And now, their world's louder than ever. Confusion echoes through their days. Things that once flowed now fall apart for no clear reason. And they're left asking, why is nothing going right anymore? Because you were the covering, chosen one. Your presence stabilized atmospheres even when you didn't realize it. The light you carried softened storms they didn't even know were coming. The love you gave built a shield they mocked. Until the moment it vanished. Let's get one thing straight. They didn't push you out to protect themselves. They pushed you out to feed their ego. They mistook your emotional maturity for weakness. They mistook your calm for control. They mistook your silence for surrender. But you weren't trying to dominate anyone. You were trying to keep the roof from falling in. And now the ceiling's cracking, piece by piece, and they can't fix it. Because the glue was you. It's like removing the battery from a clock because you didn't like the sound, only to realize later that now nothing works. The timing is off. The rhythm is broken. And the thing they tried to silence was actually the one keeping everything aligned. They're crying behind closed doors, not just because they miss you, but because they miss the version of life they had when you were in it. The clarity, the focus, the quiet strength, that energy that used to keep their life balanced. They're feeling the void now, and no matter how many people they bring in, how many distractions they chase, nothing feels right anymore. Because what you carried wasn't replaceable, it was divinely assigned. And chosen one, don't regret leaving. Don't question if you should have stayed longer, tried harder, explained more. The truth is, you were never meant to babysit broken energy. You were meant to be light, not beg to shine. The universe didn't separate you from them to punish them. It did it to preserve you. It saw the shift before they did. It saw the cracks in their character. And it moved you for your own expansion. Let them sit in the confusion, let them sit in the storm, because the peace they once had was walking beside them, and they pushed it out the door. Number 4, they used you as a joke. Now you're the lesson they can't unlearn. You were the punchline, now you're the punctuation mark that ended their delusion. They didn't just laugh, they mocked. They didn't just talk, They twisted. Every move you made, every dream you shared, every stumble you endured was turned into their personal comedy show. You were the meme in the group chat, the whispered joke at the table, the reason they rolled their eyes when your name came up. They turned your struggle into entertainment. They thought they were clever, but all they did was become background noise. In the story they didn't understand was legendary from the beginning. And now, that joke has turned into a full-blown life lesson, one they can't escape. You didn't just bounce back. You became everything they swore you'd never be, and the punchline they once used to belittle you? That's the last sentence in the story of their ignorance. Because your glow now ends conversations, your presence shuts down gossip, your evolution rewrites the script, and their laughter? It's stuck in their throats now. They laughed at the caterpillar because it crawled, mocked it because it was slow, weak, unsightly, but now they're choking on the wings of your return. Because you didn't just survive the cocoon, you outgrew the garden. You didn't transform for applause. You transformed because staying small was killing your spirit. And the universe, it saw you, it preserved you. It let them laugh while it prepared your rise. Now they don't talk about you with jokes. They talk about you with tension, with silence, with swallowed words and nervous glances, because your life now exposes everything fake in theirs. You became the walking proof that power doesn't need to announce itself. It just arrives and forces everyone to reevaluate what they thought they knew. They didn't expect you to rise. They expected you to break. That's why the regret runs so deep. That's why they cry behind closed doors, because they can't unsee what you've become. They can't go back to the illusion that you were nothing, because every success you step into reminds them you were never the joke. They just didn't understand the setup. And chosen one, don't shrink to make them comfortable now. Don't play it down. Don't hide your shine. Because this is justice. Not the kind that comes with revenge, but the kind that comes with fulfillment. The kind that turns laughter into silence and mockery into mourning. You are the lesson now, and no matter how much they wish they could unlearn it, you live in their memory like a bold period at the end of their loud, wrong sentence. Number 5. You were the warning. They thought you were a threat. You didn't show up to scare them. You showed up to spare them, but they chose pride over protection. You came into their life with light, with truth, with an energy that could have healed them if they had let it. You weren't there to dominate, control, or compete. You were there to help shift the room, shift the direction, shift the mindset. But they didn't want clarity. They didn't want alignment. They didn't want to evolve. They wanted comfort. And comfort hates disruption, even when that disruption is trying to save them. You were the warning they prayed for, but couldn't recognize, the wake-up call they ignored because it came without a title or a spotlight. You didn't scream, you didn't force, you just showed up. But your presence exposed their patterns. Your energy disturbed their chaos. You didn't bring pain, you brought truth. And truth is the only thing more terrifying than lies when someone is still in love with their illusion. They thought you were a threat because you couldn't be manipulated, because your peace didn't bow to their dysfunction, because your clarity cut through their confusion. They labeled you intense, too serious, too deep. Anything to avoid facing the mirror you held up to them. But what they didn't realize is that you weren't there to expose them. You were there to warn them. And now, every consequence is screaming your name. They're crying behind closed doors because the very things you tried to steer them away from have hit. The chaos you sensed, the betrayal you tried to shield them from, the cycles you urged them to break. You didn't come to bring destruction. You came to prevent it. And like fools ignoring the storm siren, they chose pride. And now they're drenched in the consequences of their own delay. They're drowning, not in water, but in the regret of ignoring the one soul who saw it all before it came. You, the one who spoke gently, who walked humbly, who loved honestly. And that's what hurts them now, because deep down, they know you were right. You weren't dangerous. You were delivered. You weren't the threat. You were the lifeline. But ego is louder than wisdom until the silence hits, until the flood comes, until the room is empty and the only sound left is the echo of the words you once said. And now they can't rewind it. They can't undo it. The storm didn't come because of you. It came without you. Chosen one, don't let their regret pull you back. You did your part. You offered the light. You tried to lift them. But not everyone is ready to be saved. Some people will choose their sinking ship over your helping hand, because their pride needs the control, even if it costs them their peace. Let them cry now. Let the silence scream, because the storm was never your fault. You were the siren, and they'll never forget it. Number 6. They cheered for your fall. Now they can't stand your rise. They clapped when you crumbled. Now their hands shake when they scroll past your glow. They didn't just walk away quietly. They celebrated your fall. Behind fake smiles and shallow silence, they threw invisible confetti when you hit the ground. They were the first to believe the worst about you. The first to spread what sounded like truth but was rooted in envy. They didn't help you when you were down. They whispered, "Told you so." Not to your face, of course. Cowards never confront. They just clap when no one's looking. You were their secret wish to fail. Your struggle was their entertainment. Your fall was their favorite episode. But here's what they didn't plan for. Your comeback had no sound, but it shook the ground. You didn't post revenge. You didn't rant. You didn't beg to be seen. You healed in silence, worked in shadows, and moved with purpose. And now, they can't scroll in peace without your name, your face, your elevation slapping them with the truth. You didn't just survive. You transcended. And now their hands shake. Not out of fear, but out of exposure, because every win you walk in is proof that their clapping never stopped your calling. Every new level you reach is a reminder that grace doesn't need noise to be powerful. They mocked your silence, but silence became your shield. While they talked, you transformed. While they laughed, you labored. And now you've risen into a version of yourself they can't even stand to look at, because it reflects everything they'll never become. You were the silent wish they made at your lowest. Please don't rise. And now you're the loudest proof that the universe always hears what's done in secret and flips it into justice. Because chosen one, you didn't just rise, you rose without needing to destroy them to do it. That's what they hate most. You didn't clap back. You didn't drag them. You let the universe do what it does for those who walk with intention, turn pain into presence. Now they sit behind screens, trapped in their own shame, pretending they're not watching. But you can feel it. The energy doesn't lie. They're not mad at your glow. They're mad that it came without their permission. They're mad that the person they were hoping would disappear is now too bright to ignore. Let them stew in that bitterness. Let them sit in the same corner they cheered from when you fell. Because now, every time they scroll past your face, their hands won't just shake. Their soul will remember they clapped for the wrong outcome. You were never their downfall to witness. You were their lesson to regret. Number 7. They played with the one soul that was sent to save them. You weren't a threat. You were the blessing they misread. You walked in with open hands, not to take, but to give. Love, patience, truth, presence. You didn't show up demanding anything. You showed up carrying peace, strategy, and healing disguised as conversation. You didn't just care, you covered. You didn't just stay, you stood in the gap for people who didn't even know they were breaking. You were the shift, the light, the divine interruption in a cycle they couldn't break on their own. And still, they played with you like you were disposable. They took your loyalty and called it obsession. They mocked your kindness and labeled it weakness. They twisted your consistency into control, your warnings into judgment, your energy into competition. But what they never understood, not then, not even now, is that you weren't sent to fight them. You were sent to free them. You were their lifeline, wrapped in humility, and they mistook you for a lesson they could skip. Now they're crying behind closed doors, but not because you left, because everything they ran to is failing them. The same circles they ditched you for are now draining them. The people they chose over you. Quiet, distant, fake. And the stability, the grounding, the peace they once had when you were near. Gone, because it was you. It always was. They just didn't see it until it vanished. It's like setting fire to the only bridge over the flood, and now they stand there, soaked in chaos, wondering why the water won't stop rising. You were the bridge, the answer, the covering they never thanked. They lit the match, thinking they were proving something, and now they're stuck, surrounded by everything they swore they could handle without you, and nothing feels safe anymore. Chosen one, don't you dare feel bad. The universe didn't assign you to beg for a place you were sent to bless. You were the exit from their patterns, the voice that could have saved them years of suffering, but they weren't ready. They thought your truth was a threat. They thought your elevation made them small. They saw your light and blamed it for the shadows it exposed in their soul. Let them drown in what they called freedom. Let them battle the same demons you tried to shield them from, because the moment they played games with what was sacred, the universe stepped back and said, "Let it be." And now they cry, not because they miss you, but because they realize they lost the one soul who didn't come to hurt them, but to heal everything they refused to face. Number 8. They're not crying over you, they're crying over what they missed. They don't want you back. They want the version of themselves they could have become with you. Let's be honest, chosen one, they were never really afraid of losing you. They were afraid of losing who they were becoming when they were around you, because being close to you made them see things they weren't ready to confront. Their own potential, their own healing, their own truth. You didn't just love them, you challenged them. You didn't just support them, you elevated them. And when they sabotaged the connection, they didn't just walk away from a person, they walked away from a higher version of themselves. Now they cry, not out of love, not out of longing for your presence, but out of grief for the future they destroyed by choosing fear over growth. You were the mirror they couldn't look into. You reflected back to them who they were, and, more painfully, who they were meant to be. But instead of embracing the discomfort and rising, they turned their back on it, on you, on everything the universe placed in their life as alignment. And now, that reflection is shattered. They don't see their old self anymore. They see what could have been. They scroll through your life and feel the distance. Not just the physical one, but the spiritual, emotional, transformational gap that now exists. The one they created when they chose ego over evolution. You were walking them out of cycles they swore they hated, out of patterns they couldn't break. But they got scared, not of you, of the healing you represented. They're not crying over you. They're crying because they missed it, the opportunity, the shift, the breakthrough, the life that was unfolding right in front of them until they slammed the door shut. They thought they were setting boundaries, when really they were blocking blessings. They thought walking away made them powerful, but now they sit in silence, haunted by the version of themselves that only existed when you were around. And chosen one, hear this clearly. Your value was never about what you gave them on the surface. It was what you activated in them. You were alignment wrapped in love, purpose dressed in peace, a mirror, not to flatter but to reveal. And what hurts them now is that they broke the very mirror that showed them the path they were too afraid to take. Let them sit with that. Let them cry not over your absence, but over the person they'll never become without your influence, because you were the turning point, and now they live in circles, while you're walking in alignment they can't even pronounce. They didn't just lose you, they lost the best version of themselves they were finally starting to become. Number 9. They called you delusional until reality matched your vision. They called your clarity confusion until confusion became their reality. They laughed at your vision, rolled their eyes when you spoke with conviction, brushed off your insight like you were just emotional, too deep, too intense, too much. They mocked the way you paid attention to things they ignored, the way you felt storms before the clouds even gathered. They called you dramatic, delusional, paranoid. But chosen one, what they were really reacting to wasn't your voice, it was your clarity. And now, that same clarity they dismissed has become the roadmap of their downfall. You told them, not out of ego, not to control. You felt it. You tried to steer them, warn them, protect them. You saw the patterns. You read the energy. You recognized the subtle shifts. But they couldn't hear you over the sound of their own ego. They thought your discernment was dysfunction, that your insight was instability. But now the very things you said would happen are happening, and they're not laughing anymore. Because it's hard to laugh when you're drenched in the very storm you mocked. Like laughing at someone who packed an umbrella, and now you're standing soaked in the rain, shivering, knowing they tried to tell you to prepare. You weren't being negative, you were being real, and now they're stuck in the flood, watching you walk through dry ground like you always knew the forecast. They're confused, but not because life is suddenly hard. They're confused because they can't figure out how you saw it coming. How did you know? How did you speak it before it showed up? How did you move in ways that now look prophetic? They don't understand that being chosen doesn't mean you're better. It means you're aligned. It means your sensitivity isn't weakness, it's access. And now they sit with their regret, quietly, bitterly, because your delusions are now their lived experience. They remember every time they called you crazy, every time they said you were overthinking, every time they laughed at your sensitivity. But now they feel it too late. The chaos you sensed, the fallout you tried to prevent, the fake connections you tried to expose, all of it, unfolding like a script they never read, but you always knew was coming. Chosen one, you were never delusional. You were just early. You were tuned in while they were tuned out. And now the volume's up, and the static they used to ignore is now screaming in their reality. Let them drown in the confusion they said didn't exist. Let them struggle to piece together a future they broke by ignoring your clarity, because you weren't born to be understood by the blind. You were born to see ahead. And now they cry, not because you were wrong, but because you were exactly right. Number 10. They can't hate you out loud, so they cry in private. Their silence isn't peace, it's punishment. You know they feel it. You can sense it in the way they lurk, but never engage. How they scroll past your success like it's invisible, even though it's burning holes in their chest. They won't comment, won't like, won't repost, won't reach out, because silence is their last weapon. And now, even that is backfiring, because the truth, chosen one, is this: they can't hate you out loud anymore, because they're too busy crying in private. They can't deny your rise, can't argue with the glow, can't twist the narrative anymore. The results are too loud. Your elevation is too obvious. The very person they dismissed, ignored, and disrespected has become the blueprint. And it's eating them alive. They're quiet, not because they're at peace, but because their pride can't handle the sound of your name echoing louder than ever, without them in the story. Their silence isn't strength. It's not moving on. It's not unbothered. It's shame. It's the weight of knowing they threw away something real and now have to watch you rise without their fingerprints anywhere near it. And that silence, it screams. It screams guilt. It screams regret. It screams, I messed up and I can't fix it. They won't say it. They won't admit they were wrong. But chosen one, their absence speaks louder than their words ever did, because truth doesn't need applause. Truth doesn't need noise. Truth walks in unannounced and changes the temperature of every room. And right now, your presence makes their comfort zone unbearable. Every time your name comes up, they flinch. Every time someone congratulates you, they shrink. They can't hate you in public because the world is starting to see what they tried to bury. So instead, they hate in silence, in solitude, in slow, internal breakdowns that sound like regret at full volume. You don't need their validation anymore. You never did. What you needed was separation, and the universe gave it to you. Now they're stuck watching what they lost multiply. They thought they could handle life without your presence. And now they can't even handle the silence you left behind. Let them stay quiet. Let them pretend they're unaffected. But know this: the silence is the confession. The silence is the punishment. The silence is the sound of their ego crumbling under the weight of your evolution. Number 11. You outgrew the rooms that couldn't contain you, and now they can't breathe without you. They tried to shrink you to fit. Now they suffocate without your presence. They didn't want to grow with you. They wanted to control you, wanted you small, manageable, predictable. They needed your light, but only if it didn't shine brighter than their shadows. So they tried to box you in, dim you down, mold you into someone safe for their ego. But you outgrew that space, and when you left, you took the atmosphere with you. Now they're gasping in silence, wondering why the energy feels heavy, why the room feels colder. Because you were the sun, the source, the spark that made everything feel alive, and now it's gone. They used to brag about keeping you close. Now they bury your name beneath forced smiles, hoping no one notices the shift. But they feel it, deeply. Your absence is loud, your evolution unavoidable. And the irony, the very box they built to contain you, became the cage they now sit in. Let them suffocate in the space they tried to shrink you into, because the moment you walked out, the warmth left with you. Number 12. You didn't just survive, you outlasted the lies. The stories they told about you aged like spoiled fruit, and your truth stayed fresh without needing to be defended. They thought their lies would last longer than your character, that if they repeated it enough, exaggerated it just right, and sprinkled in enough venom, people would believe them. And for a while, some did. But truth doesn't panic. It doesn't fight for attention. It waits. And while they were busy spinning stories, you were busy surviving in silence. Now those same lies, rotten, unraveling, embarrassing, and the ones who once laughed at the false version of you are now watching the real you rise, with grace, with strength, with proof. You didn't clap back. You didn't argue. You just outlived the narrative. And now they cry. Not just because their lies were exposed, but because you weren't destroyed by them. You outlasted every rumor, every whisper, every secret campaign meant to reduce you. Your truth stood like a monument, untouched by the winds of their weakness. They crafted illusions. You built reality. And the difference is showing. Let them sit with the shame of their storytelling. Because while they wasted time making people believe in your downfall, you quietly became everything they swore you'd never be. And now, chosen one, you see it clearly. The silence, the regret, the tears behind closed doors were never your burden to carry. You didn't just survive their betrayal. You became the proof that truth outlives lies, that purpose outshines pain. Let them cry, let them remember, and you keep rising. If this message lit something in you, like this video, subscribe for more truth they can't silence, and drop 777 in the comments to claim your rise. Share this with another chosen one who needs to remember. The universe never forgets who it's protecting.